Have you or someone you know experienced unexplained health issues potentially linked to electronic warfare? Project Archimedes, in conjunction with law firm Disabled Rights Advocates, is leading a groundbreaking worldwide action against the United States government, focusing on the impacts of 5G, EMF, and other unexplained phenomena, including what's known as Havana Syndrome.
We're dealing with energy weapons,
permanent brain injuries, the unexplained, serious medical harm connected to a mysterious direct energy weapon.
It was like this piercing feeling on the side of my head.
If you've suffered from symptoms like headaches, dizziness, memory loss, or other unusual health effects that you believe could be related to these technologies, we want to hear from you. We are seeking justice for those affected by these potentially harmful technologies.
Sharp, localized ear pain, dull unilateral headache, tinnitus or ringing in one ear, vertigo, visual focusing issues, disorientation, nausea, and extreme fatigue.
This was the most terrifying experience of my life. I had no control.
By joining this movement, you could help prevent future harm and potentially seek compensation for what has been endured.
We have created a global class action lawsuit. Foreign litigants would be availed to the U.S. courts to seek recovery for those who caused the damage. All roads point back to the United States.
To learn more about your rights, potential eligibility, and how to join the movement, visit projectarchimedes.org.
So we're going to sue in the United States with people from all over the planet who qualify to be a plaintiff simply on the basis that they spend an hour or more a day within 100 meters of a 5G transmitter.
Project Archimedes and attorney Todd Callender are committed to fighting for those who have been impacted.
These are the people who can't fight for themselves. They're the ones who can't hire the lawyer.
Visit projectarchimedes.org today to find out more about joining the movement.
Good morning. Todd, how are you today, sir?
It's a beautiful day. I'm happy to be here, John. I'm even happier now that I saw the Project Archimedes ad out and rolling.
It happened.
It did. You did such a beautiful job on that. You really are a talented filmmaker, and I really appreciate it. I'm excited to get kicked off. We're going to kick some backside and take names, and we're going to stop this. So I hope people will jump on.
You know, I hope this is heralds the beginning of a new phase of accountability and actual justice in our country.
Good.
Because it's been really denied to people for a long time. And denial of justice is a crime in and of itself.
Yeah, it really is, John. And this is the point. Why is it we've got to do this? Why is it we're having to fight for people? Isn't that what we pay governments to do? Dear Lord, it's all coming out, John. It's all coming out. I got a great giant list of fun things to listen to in the monologue because it's all coming out. The veil is lifted. The genie's out of the bottle. Any other colloquialism you want to use is fine and welcome.
Great. I'm going to get out of the way, and I can't wait to hear what you got to say.
Beautiful. Yeah, me too. And our guest, L.A. Marzulli, this is going to be a ride. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have fun listening because L.A. has got a tremendous amount of subject matter, research done, beautifully done. There's just so much to talk about. All the fun stuff that I love. Nephilim, are we in a matrix? Is this a simulation? Biblical references that talk about these kinds of things from thousands of years ago we're experiencing now. When I say the veil is being lifted, my Lord, we've got a champion in office seemingly doing that. It looks to me like President Trump is doing a fine job of, popping the lid off of that bottle and letting it all out. But we'll see. We reserve judgment because we judge people by their acts, not by their words. So far, he seems to be living up to his words. But at the end of the day, we worship God, not men. So just keep that in mind. having said that, Mr. Trump has already started taking an approach to do away with the T and LGB. T used to be, now it's just LGB, and getting rid of woke contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars in the USDA. What is a woke contract? Well, that's when these gangsters show up to your farm. More recently in Canada, but other parts too, they want to just kill your animals. So Colonel Chambers defended a ranch that had deer on it. USDA goons showed up with their guns to try and slaughter all of the deer because they suspected there could be some kind of a virus amongst them. And Colonel Pete held him off with his Colonel dog, Joe, for a very long time. Unfortunately, those gangsters went and got a warrant and they slaughtered all those deer for zero reason. No reason whatsoever. Same thing is now happening with ostriches in Canada, and now billions perhaps of chickens globally because of something called bird flu that our government created. Let us not forget the Department of Energy is the one who created all these pathogens and then sold them. And they made them chimeric and zoonotic. What does that mean? Bacterial, viral, and able to be transmitted between species. That is our government at work. Our tax dollars at work. And it's coming out. You can't hide it, you gangsters. We've got it, and it's coming out, and now people want to hear it. And by the way, the economic threats, people are terrified. Oh, no, the end of the world. Well, I can tell you this. I'm in the international financial community, and I can tell you this. The derivative contagion seems to have been dealt with. That was the trigger by which the world economy would collapse. And then they would roll in BRICS, a block of countries, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, amongst others, theoretically going in to create their own currency. It hasn't happened. They've had years and years, about 8 of them. Hasn't happened. What does Mr. Trump have to say about this?
I don't care, but BRICS was put there for a bad purpose, and most of those people don't even want to talk about it now. They're afraid to talk about it because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, then they're going to be hit with a 100% tariff the day they mention that they want to do it, and they will come back and say, we beg you not to do this. BRICS is dead since I mentioned that. BRICS died the minute I mentioned that. And I remember when Obama and Biden in particular, I guess he said that, they have us over a barrel. They don't have us over a barrel. We have them over a barrel. I don't care, but BRICS is...
He's got them over a barrel, all right. And what I'm expressing about the derivative contagion was quadrillions of dollars that were going to all become due at the same time and crash the global economy. BRICS theoretically had a gold-backed central bank digital currency or equivalent thereof. And Mr. Trump is right. Despite the attacks on the dollar, it is still the strongest currency in the world. It is also the most used in the world. The dollar isn't going anywhere. I do contracts around the world. They are all denominated in dollars. That's what we call euro dollars. They're not going anywhere. Mr. Trump is installing an advisory board over the intel goons. Right? There's like 11 different intelligence agencies in our government that are known of. There are others that aren't talked about, but now there's going to be oversight. Starting with the creation of the CIA, the oversight was lifted, and the death of John F. Kennedy, the murder of John F. Kennedy, unbridled the intelligence community to do anything they wanted to. Why? Because they killed the president and they showed the world that they're in charge. Well, maybe not so fast, guys, because Mr. Trump is coming now with oversight. I bet you they're going to include those same computer geniuses that Elon Musk brought along with them. There's a new sheriff in town, ladies and gentlemen. And if you think you're going to skip out and take your money offshore, as I understand that is a search item now amongst people in Washington, D.C., good luck. I'm in the business. I actually worked for a Swiss bank years and years ago. I can tell you this, if you're an American, you can't have an account outside the United States. The OECD quashed it. You cannot bank outside the United States. No bank will have you. How do I know? Because I'm in that community. I live outside the United States. I deal with this day in and day out simply because I'm an American. I can assure you, those politicians think they're going to hide money abroad. Not a chance. And even if they did, they would be charged obscene amounts of money. Umpteen dollars and obscene amounts of money, I promise you. They would have to be dealing with complete gangsters. They're going to steal it anyway. So good luck with the offshore banking thing. It ain't going to work. In the meantime, we learned what we've been talking about for a long time. Why are they killing all these animals? They're trying to trigger a global famine. They're trying to starve us out. They're trying to keep us weak. They fed us poison in our foods, poison in our medicines, poison in the vaccines, if you can call them that. And now, what do they want to do? Get caught. Get caught. The USAID, sure enough, had it, a global famine plan. And there's a guy that's going to talk to us about it. USAID, that is the Agency for International Development, paid for by us, you, the taxpayers, planned to starve us. Just what happens, what the Bolsheviks did in World War II. And guess what? We had Bolsheviks in our government. See if you can play that one for me, John. I think it was down just a little bit. Keep going, keep going. There you go. You had it. Go up.
Never forget, 6 years ago, a billionaire paedophile with ties to the global elite, the owner of a private Caribbean island complete with underage sex slaves, allegedly took his own life before he could testify. His powerful clients, they're still walking free. Never forget, the night he died, both of his prison guards were conveniently asleep. His cellmate, conveniently removed. The security cameras, they conveniently malfunctioned at the exact moment the world needed them most. If you think that was the end of the story, think again, because it's not over. High-profile figures, politicians, powerful brokers are sweating as a newly uncovered tranche of emails threatens to expose the truth they thought was buried. The case on high-profile clients including Bill Clinton and Adam Schiff isn't closed, it's just getting started.
Well, that wasn't exactly the piece that I wanted, but you know what? It works because we all needed to know that anyway. Moving on, aside from the USAID leaks, we've got Doge finally forces Congress to admit long history of financing terrorism. Is that so, Congress? What did you do? You fed the FBI money so that they could figure out how to get dupes to carry out bad acts that they could arrest and say, oh yeah, by the way, we caught them. Really? It's all made up, ladies and gentlemen. Every last bit of it. The veil is being lifted. They can't hide it anymore. And what else do we find? Our nearest neighbor to the north involved in drug running. We expect it from Mexico. 100,000 deaths per year are caused by fentanyl. Little did I know that Justin Trudeau, little Fidelito, the son of Fidel Castro, they call the Prime Minister of Canada, is involved in the drug business. Listen to our friend talk about this.
Out of Canada now. This is astonishing. Investigative reporter Sam Cooper has uncovered this bombshell, the connection from the Trudeau government through the Liberal Party, Chinese fentanyl, and how this all ties together with the Liberal Party in Canada profiting off of the fentanyl crisis. Could this be the reason why the Trudeau government has been so hesitant to lock down the border and stop the flow of illegal fentanyl into the United States because they're profiting off of it and they are facilitating it? Stop me if you've heard this before. This is unbelievable. David Craden is
unbelievable, except for the fact that it is believable because they've been after us for decades. They are literally trying to kill us. As I always say, your government isn't here to help you. They're here to kill you, at least heretofore. Mr. Trump, it looks to me like you're doing a good job of cleaning things up. We're not out of the woods just yet. But Mr. Vance, the Vice President of the United States of America, has got a message for Europe. This is freaking awesome. Go ahead, JD. Tell us.
Expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor. If American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy, what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
Yeah, even being considered. That is exactly what today's interview is about. L.A. Marzulli, This man has an unbridled perspective. That's what we want. All of us have been saying, hey, wait, stop. You can't do this. Greta is full of crap. There is no global warming, because we have open minds, because we can parallel facts and circumstances and understand and analyze them. And LA, you are that guy. My Lord, you've written how many books? With your latest one coming out, Rungs of Disclosure. Welcome to Truth Be Told. Tell us a little bit about your background for people who don't know you, and then I want to get into the meat of some of the stuff, including like Nephilim and simulation stuff.
Sure. Well, Todd, thanks for having me on. I am L.A. Marzulli. I'm the author of 14 books and directed, hosted 30 films. My new business partner, Gil Zimmerman, and I have 10 books, actually 10 DVDs, on the whole UFO phenomena. Everything from Close Encounters of the First, Second, Third, and Fourth Kind, Cat Mutilations, the abduction phenomena, 2 films on Roswell, crop circles, and then finally, what is the truth? The phenomenon is not going away. It's real, burgeoning, and not going away.
Boy, is that the truth. That's a lot of words in a short period of time that expresses it well. I have seen you over the years. I mean, it's a lot of material. And I got to tell you, I'm on the same frequency as you are. One of the things I love so much about it is you've got an open mind. You're entertaining these things such as UFOs, but everything, Nephilim, etc. It all comes back to biblical references, and you're a biblical literalist. What does that mean?
Well, I believe that what's in the Word, what's in our Bibles, is we take it literally. In other words, when it says, I mount up on eagle wings, okay, that's a metaphor. I get that. I'm not going to grow wings and mount up like an eagle. I understand that. But when the Lord says, when Jesus tells us it'll be like the days of Noah, that's literal. He's pointing us back to the days of Noah before he returns. Guess what, folks? We are in a very period of time which is very similar to the days of Noah. When Jesus warns us that men will faint from fear for what is coming upon the earth, he's not mincing words. That's a warning. When Paul says that the dragon, Satan, i.e. Satan, comes with all signs and lying wonders, something's about to hit. Something's already there. The machinations of it are already there. The groundwork is already set. And what's coming will change the global paradigm in a nanosecond.
I think so too. You know, I get what I call God whispers. Pretty much everybody that's part of Cloud Hub and Vax Choice, this community of sorts, seems to get these messages. And for that reason, I believe we've all basically said, no, we're not taking your stupid shots. We understood the attack on humanity for what it was. And I keep coming back to one thing that sticks in my head, LA, and that is that those who seek our destruction are the offspring. They are the seed of Cain. In other words, Satan seduced Eve and produced a bloodline in form of Cain. And these are literally genetically the result of Satan in my mind. And they have no conscience. They hate us with their passion. They have no empathy. And yet they are the royals. They are the bloodlines of this world. Have you delved into that in your research, your discussions?
Well, that's called the serpent seed theory, and I don't necessarily hold on to that. But what I do hold on to is the Genesis 3:15 narrative, which is very, very similar to what you're talking about. We know that the offspring, this is Jesus in the garden, talking to the dragon, talking to Adam and Eve over here. And Jesus says to the dragon, Satan, your offspring, your seed will be at war with the offspring of the woman. The proto-evangelium, the one coming from the woman, will crush your head. You will bruise his heel. So in essence, we're talking about the same thing. There is a mingling of the seed. Absolutely. 3 chapters later, everything erupts. The Nephilim are on the earth in those days and also afterwards. When the sons of God, the fallen angels, see the women of earth and go into them, that's in the biblical sense. They have sex with the women, human women. They create an offspring known as the Nephilim, which are soulless, by the way. They are in a fixed state. You're right. They hate us. They hate us. Guess what? The Nephilim, modern day Nephilim hybrids are walking amongst us. I'm going to throw you in the deep end of the pool.
Please.
Throw your audience right into the deep end of the pool. So in Daniel 2:43, it says this. Remember, this is the angel speaking of Daniel. And he says that their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Who is he talking about? Who are they? It's not human beings, so who is it? This is why the Genesis 3:15 narrative is so paramount in our discussion. My hat is off to my elder brother, Gary Stearman, who unpacked that for me years ago. The bottom line is this. that it's happening now. The angel tells us, Daniel, seal up the words in this book until the time of the end. And then he gives us what I call a supernatural clue. He tells us what the time of the end will look like. Men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge will increase. That's flatlined until Gutenberg's printing press, 1440. And then it's still pretty flatlined until the Industrial Revolution. Then it starts going up. Now it's like this. Knowledge increases exponentially. It is unbelievable. And as we are speaking, Todd, men and women are running to and fro over the face of the earth, which means that now we can look at that scripture. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men and understand that this hails back to the Genesis 3:15 narrative, Genesis 3:15 narrative, Genesis 6, the commingling of the seed. Jesus, why would Jesus warn us? It would be like the days of Noah. And I've heard well-meaning pastors, well, they were eating and drinking and all this stuff. Who were they, first of all? And this is why it's so important.
I have some science to back what it is you're saying as well. So we found Lisa McGee's one of our dedicated researchers, and I don't know what comes into her head. She gets the God whispers too. Anyway, she looked up the definition of human, which is Homo sapiens sapiens. And when you read in PubMed, that's the government's documents, the taxonomy of a human, it states as the definition of who we are, quote unquote, a species to be experimented upon. So that begs the question, if we are the species being experimented upon, who are the scientists experimenting on us, right? It's obviously somebody else. And you made reference to that, a minute ago. It's biblical again, and it talks about watchers. It talks about others. They're undefined other than the Nephilim. And I share your view. And one of the things we come to see is that leaders of this world all seem to be very tall, unusually tall. And you see the Smithsonian for hundreds of years, actually, I think it's been in existence for about 250 years, running around, taking giants out of the ground and say, oh no, this never happened, except for the fact that there's evidence that it did happen. Giants walked this earth. All of these things happen, and the longer we go, we discover this. And you've dug up all kinds of stuff about it. So going back to the deep end, I want to know about that. I want to eventually arrive to the simulation model.
Okay, so here we are. This is the information. I discovered this photograph years ago. It was in the Catalina Island Museum. We published the photograph, and this is the original photograph right here. I discovered it right there. It shows Ralph Glidden, who's 5'8", and you can see in front of him is a very large skeleton.
Yes.
God, that's a 9-footer. That's a 9-footer found on Catalina Island. Okay. And what the Catalina Island Museum did, and since you're a lawyer, I'm gonna throw this back in your court. This is what it looks like.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big person.
So what happened to that? So first of all, this is why Doge needs to get involved. Who funds the Smithsonian? Who funds the museums
who does?
All around the world? Why is it that in any museum you go into, the Darwinian paradigm is the one that's thrown out? Never the Christian paradigm, always the Darwinian paradigm. It's got to stop. Why is it that we know, absolutely know for a fact, that the Smithsonian, to your point, took the skeletons and we never see them again? As American citizens, and our taxpayer money is funding some of this stuff, we have a right to know what you guys found. End of story. And frankly, I take great umbrage in the fact that, all this is sub rosa. All this is under the rose. We never find out about anything. So Richard Shaw, my late business partner, and I go back to the Catalina Island Museum after we published the book, On the Trail of a Nephilim. There's what's hanging up in the museum.
In place of what was there? Well,
what's missing? See the picture? What's missing?
No, I can't see the picture. It seems to be the missing is the giant. Is it no longer there? They removed it?
Right here.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Well, I mean, that explains it, right? And we see this all over the world, that somehow these men in black, show up and they take away all of the evidence so that they can control the paradigm. It's not unlike every time, and I know people who've done this, right? Every time people discover the secrets to perpetual energy, 0 point energy, and things of that nature. They end up getting killed, or exactly, displaced. And what I find fascinating about this is the amount of time, energy, and money that's put into fooling us, to using propaganda, whether that's sports teams or commercials, or the news outlets, to shape the way humanity thinks. And I think that's because we are on a connected consciousness, and they're trying to drive the frequency down this cattle chute to an outcome that they desire. And that outcome is either the termination, the extinction, or the transformation of humanity into a new species. This is, believe it or not, something that I took all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. As it related to the shots, the kill shots, there is actually U.S. Supreme Court precedent that says if you use mRNA for genetic modification, the product of that genetic modification belongs to patent holders. And what did we find in all of the shots? Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, all of them were gene modification agents. We know now that people got these shots were genetically modified. They are actually a new species, LA, under the law. Isn't that also biblical?
Well, I mean, this is a step. Let me back up. When the whole jab thing came up, I mean, we looked at it. I mean, he said, well, there's no way we're going to take this thing. This is, we don't even know what's in these things. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
when I go to my doctor's office, they're always, well, why don't you get a shingle vaccine? Why don't you get this? It's like, why am I going to take anything into my body that I have no idea? Exactly. This is not the mark of the beast, but it certainly is a precursor to the mark of the beast. And I'm going to, once again, go down on the deep end of the pool.
Please.
There was a man. His name is Emil Jurek. He's an abductee. We interviewed Emil. He's in our films, but we also, in our Watchers series, he came to us and said, I've been abducted numerous times. I have an implant. And so at this particular time, Dr. Roger Lear was alive and well. So Dr. Roger Lear had a protocol to weed out those looking for, attention or whatever. And Emil passed all those protocols, all those checks in the written interview. The first thing we did is we got an x-ray. Sure enough, there's a metallic object right below his knee. Second thing was a CAT scan. Sure enough, there's the metallic object. We did a Gauss meter. We did a stud finder. I mean, we knew that there was a metallic object, by the way, with no entry wound.
Yep.
Right below the knee.
Yep.
So now we're in the operating theater. We can't find it. One prayer changes the dynamic. All of a sudden, this object comes screaming forward on the monitor. 30 minutes later, we have it out. 3 days later, we're at SEAL Lab with a scanning electron microscope. This is hard science. There's no entry wound. It's made out of meteorite metal. It's powered by not by the circulatory system. It's powered by the nervous system. Since Emil has had that out, he's had some medical issues. Let's just put it that way. Before the implant, and he was 45 when we took the implant out, he was never sick at all. Now he gets sick like, flu and colds. So I believe that this is a precursor to the mark of the beast. Whoever is taking people, and we know who they are, and abducting people and implanting them against the will of the parents. Remember, Emil was 5 years old, 5 years old when they took him and they implanted him. So this is who's doing this. I'll tell you exactly who's doing it.
Please tell me.
These are the fallen angels. This is exactly what's going on. It's similar to the days of Noah. And I get it. Some of you people out there, you're going, how is this possible?
Not our audience.
And this is the problem. Most people are not taught that the reason for the flood is the mixing of the seed, of the genome. You are the enemy, the fallen one, is genetically modifying humans and turning them into the offspring, into Nephilim. Why would Jesus warn us? That's exactly what's going on. In the halls of Congress last week, there was a testimony on Fauci. And maybe we'll get into trouble going down this rabbit hole.
No, you're on uncensored network.
Okay, good.
Uncensored.
Yeah, because YouTube is completely censored. Thank you very much.
That's why we built
I have
this.
To watch what I say. Without free speech, I can go down another rabbit hole. But without free speech, we have nothing. We have nothing. And who are the gatekeepers who decide? Well, that doesn't fit our community guidelines. Oh, really? Yeah. Without free speech, we don't have a republic. But I digress.
No. I was going to say, you're talking to the CEO of Cloud, so I can assure you, none of this will be censored.
Great. Last week, they were talking about Fauci. They were taking material from aborted fetuses and inserting that genetic material into animal embryos. They were creating chimeras. Guess what? According to the Book of Enoch, which is a pseudepigraphical book. But why does Jude quote it in our scripture? You don't quote something unless it's part of your wheelhouse, unless you know it. He's quoting the Book of Enoch. And what we know from the Book of Enoch is the fallen angels came down. They had sex with the women. They created a Nephilim, but they also went after the animals, and they created chimeras. So when we get Greek mythos and we read about centaurs and minotaurs and fawns, that's not mythos.
LA, hey, it's happening. I want you to understand this. When we sued, I sued the Department of Defense, HHS, and FDA to stop the shots. And in the process of that, hundreds of thousands of plaintiffs and whistleblowers came from everywhere. And what I want to tell you is that we discovered that our government actually built these pathogens. They are all chimeric. It was the Department of Energy that created 470,000 of these gene modification agents. They all are. They're for sale, by the way. And there is a Department of Health and Human Services dedicated to SynBio. In other words, their mission is to genetically modify every plant and animal species on this planet. That is in their mission. They are funded for that purpose. I would also endorse one of the things you said ago. If you saw the public service announcement at the very front end, that's our lawsuit. It's a global class action lawsuit for primarily TIs, people that are targeted individuals. They use the 5G weapon platform to do that, amongst other weapons platforms. But what I want to tell you is that of the thousands and thousands of people that are our prospective plaintiffs group, and we've talked to many thousands of them, 50% of them have implants. They don't know how they got there.
Wow.
There's a NASA scientist by the name of Richard Lighthouse, and he came up, he's also a TI. He also has an implant. He doesn't know how he got it, but he takes the microphone into the bullhorn, and if you rub it around people's bodies, it goes off. It makes a noise. Sure enough, you look in that spot, and there's an implant. So this implant program has been going on for a long, long time, and I've never heard it before. You say this is the Nephilim doing this. It makes perfect sense. I've never heard that before. But go on. You wanted to get some deeper swimming pool area.
Well,
go,
I mean,
man.
Here's the deal. Whoever is doing this, and we know who's doing this. Emil was taken when he was 5 years old. There's a clip. It's in our 10-box set. It's on abductions. And Emil looks right at the camera and he goes, "When I was a boy, they locked me in my room. Why? Because they would find me out on the front lawn of the backyard as a 5 or 6 year old. They was afraid I was going to drown in the pool. So what they did is they put locks on my doors and on the windows. No way I can get out, right?" And he goes, the next morning they'd find me out on the lawn. And he looks right at the camera and he says, "Explain that to me." He talks about he's in the backyard in a summer night, camping out with some friends, and the grays come over the wall. The abduction phenomenon is real. It echoes and shadows what happened way back in the days of Noah. And those implants that are being put in people are, in my opinion, these are precursors to the mark of the beast. They are about the size of a grain of rice. They are controlled not by the circulatory system, but by the nervous system. That's how they're powered. When we went to take it out, we couldn't find it. And we had found it with the Gauss meter, with x-rays, with CAT scans. Dr. Matriciana had taken the ultrasound one, and he found it within, less than a minute. Now we're in the operating theater with Dr. Matriciana, with Dr. Roger Lear, and we can't find the implant. And the Holy Spirit taps me on the shoulder and says, "You need to take authority over it." Now I'm in a room full of unbelievers, and I go, "This can sound really strange, but I'm going to pray, and I'm going to do it now." And my prayer was very short, very succinct. "Father, if there are forces which are cloaking this device, I pray that you would break them and do it now." Todd, less than a minute and a half goes by, and the implant comes up like this from the back of a screen, and everybody goes, "Wow, what's that?" And then on film, we show the incision, the spreading of the incision, the implant underneath the skin, and we actually remove the implant. 3 days later, we're in SEAL Lab in Los Angeles. It's made out of meteorite metal. There's carbon nanotubes in it. No one has any idea what these things are. In my opinion, this is the precursor of the mark of the beast, because that implant that we took out at that time was 40 years old. And that was the last one Dr. Roger Lear took out. But the implant right before that implant, number 16, ours was number 17, the last implant. Number 16 had an alloy on it that was so hard, they couldn't cut it with a diamond saw. They had to take that implant into a laboratory and cut it open with a laser. And that's the one that had the double-walled carbon nanotubes in it. I believe that these are because, you say the mark of the beast. This mark, you can't buy, sell, or trade without it. Okay, we've got biometric chips. I got it. It's a whole different deal. Why is it, think about this, why is it that the Lord in the book of Revelation, why is it that Jesus warns us, if you take the mark of the beast, you wind up in a lake of fire? There's no grace, there's no mercy. I've written about this extensively.
Yes.
Why? Because you take on the genetic makeup, to your point, of the fallen one. You become a modern day Nephilim. That's what you become. You become the seed of a serpent.
Let me add to your calculus here. One of the things that we came to find, having studied very carefully and put into the federal record, we put thousands of pages of evidence into our court case in the federal record, which included the ingredients in the hydrogel in the shots, which has a component called, believe it or not, the Borg particle. Certain government documents refer to the new species created as a result of the shots as Borg, B-O-R-G, Star Trek. But what's fascinating about this Borg particle is that it fades in and out of this dimension when exposed to EMF radiation. So I'm wondering, in my world, in my view, this is maybe not exactly a simulation, but it is comprised of frequencies. In the beginning, God spoke, right? That is a frequency. Everything is a function of frequencies. And so it's really only an issue of what frequency it is as to whether or not this object appears or doesn't appear. So when you talk about a disappearing implant, first thing comes to mind is this is quantum field theory. These are quantum particle physics. And we actually have a whistleblower from the Air Force who's a PhD in quantum particle physics. And sure enough, this is what they study and talk about, is different dimensions having an effect on this one based on exposure to electromagnetic frequency and radiation. So I'm sure that has something to do with what it is you're doing. And I want to make sure you know that all of the science that we have, it's a mountain. It is literally a mountain. It backs up what it is you're saying, but from a different point of view. They didn't hide this, LA. They wrote it all down, and we have it. So I want to make it available to you. So as you're looking for citation for this stuff, it does exist. And it's mind-boggling that we come to this point in time, including what you said a minute ago, that this is chimeric. That is exactly the point. When you look at the payloads of the lipid nanoparticles that they put in these shots, they are all chimeric. It is Staphylococcus, Ebola, Marburg, whatever. But they are all genetically modified. They are synthetic DNA, and they are designed for the sole purpose of genetically modifying people's bodies and turning them into chimeric. Because you heard in the very beginning, I was talking about some of these pathogens they created are zoonotic. Goes back to what you were talking about, right? The chimeric animals and humans. That is what zoonotic means, is the transmissibility of the diseases between men and people. Something now that are called One Health. Effectively, they're saying that doctors of veterinary medicine, anything having to do with biology now is One Health. Why? Because all of the diseases they created and infected us with are chimeric. All of them. So,
and to your point, this is why he has to come back soon.
Yeah.
Because you can't fix this anymore. We're beyond the point of fixing. Even with Trump, we've got a window of time, 2 years basically before the midterms, to try to fix this. And but we're so far down the rabbit hole. I mean, we've got, most people know this. If there's a nuclear device that goes off anywhere on the planet, I'm going to kind of cut to the chase here because I know we're running out of time. But let me just say this: rungs of disclosure.
Please.
The first rung is Commander David Fravor on Tucker Carlson show. It's 2017. This is when Tucker is still on Fox News, and he introduces Commander David Fravor with the following introduction. I'm paraphrasing. UFOs used to be the stuff of tinfoil hat, wearing people in conspiracy theories, but maybe we shouldn't think that anymore. Commander David Fravor joins us tonight, former F-18 pilot. Commander David Fravor, thanks for joining us. You had a confrontation with a tic-tac shaped UFO over the Pacific Ocean. This is 2017. I'll cut to the chase. He says, Tucker asked Commander David Fravor, in your opinion, what was this thing? And Fravor looks right at the camera and says, whatever this was not from this earth. That's the first rung on the ladder of disclosure. Since then, we're up on rung number 19. The book only has 17. Book came out in October. So since October, there's been 2 other rungs on the ladder of disclosure. The last one was by Jake Barber, who was on News Nation, who stated that he was moving these egg-shaped UFOs around via a helicopter, and an entity came out of the object and went into him. It was a female entity. It was benevolent. It was peaceful. It was loving, and all this other stuff. And I immediately, when I heard that, I said, that's how they show up. They're not going to go, I'm from the dark side. They're messengers of deception. They're masters of deceit. But the bottom line is, since then, there's been a steady increase. There's been a steady climbing up the ladder of disclosure. One of the more stunning rungs, it's actually number 15 in the book. David Grush is a whistleblower. He's under oath in the halls of Congress. He's being questioned by our representatives. One of them is Nancy Mace. I roll the video when I'm speaking at conferences. And Nancy Mace asks David Grush, do we have crashed craft? Have we retrieved crashed UFOs? Essentially, he says yes. Then she follows up. Did we retrieve the pilots, the occupants of these craft, those who were flying those craft? He looks right up at her and he says, yes, we retrieve biologics. Well, she kind of thinks for a second and she goes, Nancy Mace goes, were these human or non-human biologics? David Grush looks right up at her, right at the camera, and says, these were non-human biologics. So not only have they retrieved the craft, but they retrieved the entities found in the craft. We went out in one of our films, and we talk about this. I got props all over the desk. This is a piece of metal that we found in the Roswell debris field.
Good for you.
Roswell, in the debris field. We went out there with 2 metal detectors, Chuck Zukowski, Frank Kimbler. We actually we're the only film crew that's ever actually shown one of the pieces of metal being dug up out of the ground. We get the hit on the metal detector, the cameras start rolling, Frank's sitting there like this, digging this thing out. Finally, he realizes that, okay, it's out, whatever it is. Now he's sifting the dirt, and then at the last sift, he goes, oh my gosh.
There it is.
And there it is. And we've had it tested. It's an aluminum alloy, but it doesn't match anything that we know on this planet.
I will tell you this. I have a client, he just died. Phil Corso is his name. His father was Colonel Phil Corso of Roswell fame. He's the guy that had the weather balloon. I have his memoirs. I have his diary. And I have the results of the autopsy that he was present in for what they term extraterrestrial biological entities. So everything you're saying, Colonel Corso wrote in his diary and his memoirs. I know he did. And I've got a stack of them about that thick. Yeah, he wrote the day after Roswell. So sadly, Phil Jr. just died a couple of weeks ago, which is too bad. Wow. He's a treasure and a wealth of information. And he, like you, has been trying to get this out for his whole life. And it's tragic because at the end of the day, everybody keeps getting killed, right? So my hope is that at the least, Mr. Trump, if all of this is coming out, please at least afford us, call off the dogs, have USAID stop, spending money on goons who are simply trying to kill us. And for that matter, the folks at Smithsonian, I think they're all one and the same.
They are.
I really do.
What are they so afraid of? What are they so afraid of? You know what they're afraid of?
They're afraid of the truth.
The truth. The giants point back to the validity of the biblical prophetic narrative. That's right. What it shows, that the Nephilim are on the earth.
You bet.
We have 8 films on the trail of a Nephilim. But let me circle back to the rung of disclosure.
Sure.
Last week, Anna Paulina Luna stood up and she gave a briefing, and I know you know this. Yeah. And she says we're gonna uncover the JFK assassination, RFK, Martin Luther King, and we're also going to look in the whole UFO phenomena. And what she said was just mind blowing. She goes, I've looked at the evidence and there were 2 shooters in Dallas. For those of us who have been conspiracy theorists for the last, 60 years or whatever, this is nothing new. Of course, we knew there were more than 2 shooters. But the fact that if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be our president now. And we need to keep him in prayer that he doesn't have a little accident. Let me just end by a little rant by saying this. When Butler, Pennsylvania, the moment it happened, I was actually on the phone with Gary Stearman. We were talking, and Gary goes, "Oh my gosh, he's been shot." And I go, "What?" And we hung up. I immediately got on, and I saw the commotion, what was going on. I went on the record immediately, Dallas 2.0. And we need to get to the bottom of what happened in Butler. There's some things which have come out which seemingly implicate Mr. Shapiro, Governor Shapiro. Apparently, Biden and Shapiro met numerous times before. This is an absolute catastrophic failure of the Secret Service. It was deliberate. It was orchestrated. And we need to get to the bottom of it. Absolutely.
As was the murder of JFK. That was a Secret Service hit as well.
Orchestrated.
John, welcome back. I'm sure you've got questions by now for LA because we could be sitting here all day going.
We could be sitting here all day. Scratch the surface.
This was just the intro.
Exactly.
Exactly.
When I hear all about this, one thing I can't help but think about is one of the side effects of the COVID experience was that a significant portion of our population, especially the United States population, was genetically sampled. And I wondered from the very beginning, what are they looking for? It's not COVID. They were just making up diagnoses for COVID. The PCR test was a joke. But what if they were looking for something else? And that's there's not really a question, but what do you think about that?
They are looking for Rh negative bloodlines because almost every single abductee I've ever talked to, they have Rh negative. Not all of them, but many of them. They have Rh negative blood. That is not Nephilim blood. What it is, and this is conjecture, but it enables these entities to reproduce and create the Nephilim. It's easier for them to procreate with someone who's Rh negative. Now that's conjecture, but listen to this one. We have a film on cattle mutilation. We're the only Christian ministry that's ever waded into the deep end of the pool. Many people are even afraid to talk about it. But we interviewed this one rancher. He's lost 16 head of cattle in 20 years, all mutilated in the most grisly way you can possibly think of. The sex organs are taken. All the blood is drained from the animal. Hold that thought. Cattle mutilations. Now go over here to the abduction phenomena. In our film, we interviewed Karen Wilkinson. We actually published her book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. She was taken by the time when she was like 5 years old, she was being taken and raped. And basically, it's a horrific story. But she was impregnated by them 3 different times. At the end of the third month of pregnancy, they are reabducted. The women are reabducted, and that fetus, that hybrid entity, is removed from the womb. Get this. It needs a place to go into to come into full term. These entities, and before I give you the punchline, the blood from a cow, bovine blood, has been AMA medically approved in human transfusions. So you can take the blood of a cow and you can mix it with human blood. Yeah. So what they're doing, the fallen angels, just like the days of Noah, they are creating artificial wombs for these Nephilim hybrid coming out of the women. They're reabducted, the fetus is taken out, and they're put into an artificial womb. They are constructing artificial wombs. That's what the cattle mutilation is all about. That's what the cattle mutilations are all about. And we broke that story, guys. That's my business partner, Gil Zimmerman, and I. We connected the dots. No other research. And this is what's so important. And yet there's so many people in the Christian world. Oh, we don't want to get into that. We only need a salvation. Go away, LA. Please. Excuse me. This is the deep end of the pool. And we're in it right now. It's the days of Noah. They are creating hybrid beings. Wake up. Wake up.
I fear it's an army of them.
Because Satan's outnumbered 2 to 1.
Yeah, that's the concern. Did that answer your question, John? Sure answered mine.
I mean, it's, I I find it's interesting, and they say China got most of our DNA from all the PCR tests, but I just wonder, what would you do with that data? I mean, how were they looking for the Nephilim, or were they looking for humans? Maybe they're all Nephilim now, right? Like, who's left? Who's the remnant
left?
that didn't take the PCR test, that didn't get the jab?
144,000 of us.
Well, that's it. Those are the tribes of Israel, and that's during the tribulation. But the saints, isn't it amazing how many of the born again, spirit filled Christians, the moment we heard about it, we go, well, we're not doing that, and then all the discrimination started to come. Oh, you didn't take the jab, No, I didn't take the jab. What's it to you? And now we're finding out. Dr. Zelenko talked about it. I'm sure you guys know all about him.
Of course.
The poison.
Frank Zelenko's a friend.
Yeah.
This is the point, Ellie. When I sued the DOD, we were the first one to do it. It was a temporary restraining order. We put 1,000 pages of evidence and personally served Lloyd Austin with the fact that not only were these gene modification agents, two other things, all the test animals and mRNA died. I know because my family tested them. And number two, that between 1/3 and 1/2 of the contents of the shots was antifreeze, otherwise known as polyethylene glycol. My point in telling you is that he did it anyway. We said, don't poison your troops. And I expected him to go, oh, well, wait, we didn't know this. No, they came back and fought us for 3 years all the way to the Supreme Court. This was an intentional poisoning or modification of all of our troops. He fragged our own troops. That's the bottom line. The question is why? What compels the Secretary of Defense to genetically modify the entire military? And I'll tell you why, because they were going to use the military to force the shots on everybody else. We stopped effectively the genetic transformation of our entire species. That's the bottom line.
At least for now.
You're right about that, because at the end of the day, they've now made these things contagious. But at least what we did was stop them from mainlining it into everybody's bodies. Now they got to figure out other ways to do it. And you can see they haven't given up on the whole stupid COVID thing. There's COVID this and COVID that. Notable people, including Dr. McCullough, Dr. Sansone, others like them, saying, look, this is poison. Get it off the books. And you know what? The government doesn't do that. Why? Because they are bought, paid for, and owned by the owners. And I believe that the owners are, in fact, Nephilim or their descendants, because it's an attack on humanity. They don't care if we're dead. They just care if we're extinct. And that can happen by transformation to a new species or eradication. Either way, they win. But we're still here. We're not done yet. So that's the value of what it is that you're doing, Ellie, to get word out for people to open their minds, understand what it is you're saying. And trust me, thousands and thousands of people come forward with same kind of notions that you do, because we're all on the same frequency. We're all getting the same God whispers. So whatever kind of a name you were called in the past, that's soon going to be changed to the guy was right. the truth teller was right the whole time. And I look forward to that, because this is what has to happen. And maybe that's the last question, unless you've got one, John. I want to know what happens next. What about you, John?
I want to know, how do you identify Nephilim?
Good.
How do we take this into the street, right?
Well, the bottom line is the hybrids, which in my opinion are modern day Nephilim, first of all, can pass as a human being. That's the first thing. Sure. It's very difficult to tell. They never get the eyes right, because the eyes are the windows to the soul. So when you see a black-eyed kid, that's the same. Let me back up. Again, we've got a few minutes here. I can't unpack everything. There's 30 films and 14.
No, we'll have to do it again, because I've got another one.
1945, you get Hiroshima, Nagasaki. 1947, you get the Roswell crash. Where? Roswell, New Mexico. Why? The 509th Bombing Group is there, and the 509th Bombing Group was the bombing group that dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's 47, the Roswell event. 48, Israel becomes a nation, fulfilling biblical prophecy. From 48 to the present day, the entire UFO phenomena as we know it takes off. We get crop circles, cattle mutilations, abductions, all the flybys, all this crazy stuff. They are waiting for something. And their trigger, trigger is a nuclear event. Think about this. How do you create a one world government and a one world religious system? How do you create that? How does that happen?
Ordo
Is
ab
that just
cal.
metaphor? Is that just allegory? No, it's not.
That's a plan.
It's a plan.
It's a
The
plan.
question is, it begs the question, how is that going to happen? Because right now you've got all this diversity. There's no way this thing's ever going to come together unless something happens. We are now connected. By the way, this is the last rung in the book. This is conjecture. This is the final rung. This is when they show up. And this is what happens, in my opinion. This is conjecture.
Good.
It's based on decades of
Good.
research.
I want to know.
We are now connected via the internet, the satellite network above us. The globe is a very small globe, except for the middle of Amazon, and there's nobody there anyway, and who cares? Everybody is connected. COVID was a perfect example of how to light up the grid and make everybody in lockstep turn and do something, except those of us who said, no, I'm not doing this, right? We're the troublemakers. No, I'm not doing this. But here's the deal. You have a nuclear event anywhere on this planet, anywhere, and they're already saber rattling all the nukes. Turkey's now wants to get a nuke. Iran already has it. North Korea has it. Pakistan. All it takes is one. If you have a nuclear device exploded anywhere on this planet, the entire grid lights up. The entire internet, everything, all cell phones, everything will be doing one thing, showing what's going to happen. It creates, that nuclear event creates the greatest climate of fear that mankind has ever experienced together. Guess what? That's when they show up.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely perfect sense.
They will tell us, let me just finish with this. They will say that we created, that ET, these guys created all life on this planet. We genetically manipulated early man. We started the world's religions, started the world's civilizations. Now at this critical juncture, we're here to usher mankind into a golden age. That's how you get your one world government. That's how you get your one world religious system.
I've heard it. I hear the narrative all the time. I know you're absolutely right. With that said, we're going to have you back to talk more about this, because seriously, we could go on for days. I'm absolutely on the same wavelength with you, and I can tell you our audience is just the same. So we're going to have to do that. I would love it. Thank you, guys. We'll get him. Yeah, let's do that. God bless you for what it is you do, Ellie. It's really an honor to meet you, and I've enjoyed seeing you. I'm going to enjoy seeing you more. Now I'm going to call you my friend. So thanks for that, John. To you and Vax Choice Clout Hub family, thank you for all it is that you do. We'll get this out pronto. All right.
Thanks so much, guys.
God bless you both. You bet. All right, fellas. So long.